Listening Library presents Disney Descendants School of Secrets, Books 2 and 3, Freddie's Shadow Cards, and Allie's Mad Mystery by Jessica Brody. Read for you by Kyla Garcia. Freddie's Shadow Cards. The hand you're dealt. The gift wasn't wrapped. The girl was surprised her father had remembered her birthday at all. There wasn't a whole lot of celebration on the Isle of the Lost, an island full of fallen villains. What did they have to celebrate? They were basically all prisoners, banished there by King Beast and his royal proclamation to rid the United States of Auradon of evil. The girl, who was celebrating her 10th birthday that year, was used to getting dolls from her father. Not normal dolls like the ones most little girls snuggled with at night. These were voodoo dolls, full of a special kind of dark magic. At least, they would have been, had magic been allowed on the Isle of the Lost. But that year, on her birthday, the girl wasn't sure what to make of the object her father tossed to her during their breakfast of goblin slop and crusty bread. It was a strange pack of cards, tied together with a piece of old yellowed string. She held the pack in her hand and studied it for a long time, turning it around and around in an effort to make sense of it. "What are these?" she asked her father, who was humming to himself as he cut his bread. Her father liked to hum. The girl got her musical talent from him. But as soon as she asked the question, he stopped humming and turned to her with a scowl.
"I have failed you, ma petite, if you don't recognize a deck of shadow cards when you see one."
The girl's eyes widened.
"Shadow cards?"
she repeated in disbelief. Obviously, she'd heard of shadow cards. Her father had spoken highly of his long-lost days in the bayou, when he had made a living using those dark magic harbingers. According to her father's stories, the cards could predict a person's future. They could tell you which path to take to find what you desired most. But she'd never seen a deck before.
"Real shadow cards?"
Her father scoffed at that.
"Yes, they're real."
"Do they work?"
she asked. The question seemed to anger him. He refused to meet her eye across the table. The girl immediately knew why he was angry, and she regretted asking in the first place. Of course they didn't work. It was the Isle of the Lost. Magic was forbidden there, which meant her father's life's work was forbidden there too. She untied the string that held the deck together and fanned the cards out in her hand. A dark and creepy image stared back at her from the face of each card. A woman with 3 heads, a heart pierced by a sword, a castle on fire. She grinned.
"I love them. Thank you."
Her father's dark eyes darted to her.
"Do you even know how to use them?"
She shook her head.
"No."
That seemed to make him instantly forget his anger as he tipped his head back and released an evil cackle, like he knew a secret that she didn't.
"Someday you will, ma petite,"
he said, staring intensely at her.
"Someday you will."
And he was right. Shadow Girl. Freddie is the daughter of Dr. Facilier. You might know her dad. He's most famous for turning princes into frogs and making deals with his friends on the other side, among other cool stuff. Some people call him the Shadow Man, but to Freddie, he's just bad old dad. Don't worry if you haven't heard of her yet. You soon will. She's going to be famous one day, too. Not for shrinking heads or transforming people into frogs like her father. That's so last generation. She's going to be famous for singing. She loves to sing. And one day she's going to move to the Bayou d'Orleans, where her father is from, and become a professional jazz singer. It's all she's wanted since she was a little girl. But you can't just become a famous jazz singer. You have to work your way up. You have to learn the ropes. practice every day, perform every chance you get. And that's exactly what she's going to do. While most of her peeps are still stuck back on the Isle of the Lost with no Wi-Fi and no magic, major bummer, she happens to be one of the lucky few VKs, that stands for villain kids, who got to come live in Auradon. Sounds pretty wicked, right? It is. Sort of. For the most part. Okay, the truth is the kids here at Auradon Prep are still suspicious of her. But it's not like she cares what a bunch of AKs, Auradon kids, thinks of her. She doesn't need them as friends. She has a plan. And it's pretty foolproof if you ask Freddie. Because honestly, when in the history of time has a villain's plan ever gone wrong? Unlucky 13. Back when she was living on the Isle, she never would have guessed she'd be dying to join a group of Auradon prepsters. What's to be said? A girl's gotta sing. Freddie couldn't believe her eyes. She stared at the sign, blinking twice to make sure her vision wasn't out of focus. But she could see just fine, and she wasn't imagining it. The sign read, Auradona auditions today at 3 o'clock. Freddie checked the time on the clock hanging in the middle of the Auradon Prep banquet hall. It was 2:58 p.m., and the auditions were on the other side of the school, in the chapel. Freddie started to run. The Auradonas were the a cappella group at Auradon Prep, and they were one of the best a cappella groups in all of Auradon Kingdom. Freddie would have shrunken her own head for the chance to join the Auradonas, but they never had spots open. So why were they suddenly holding auditions? Did someone drop out? She wondered. Is someone sick? The Auradonas had won almost every competition in the kingdom. That was something Freddie knew only because Audrey, Princess Aurora's daughter and the lead alto of the group, never stopped blabbing about it. Lately it seemed like the upcoming National A Cappella Championships were all Audrey could talk about, and how if they didn't win, she'd be forced to do something really drastic, like wear black. Yes, Audrey had been even more stressed and cranky than usual those days. It was mostly because some new group had just popped up that year. They were called the Sword in the Tone, and they were rumored to be out of this world amazing. It was making everyone in the Auradonas nervous. Freddie picked up the pace, huffing and puffing as she dashed past the dorm toward the chapel. It was admittedly hard for her to run in her pinstriped red velvet dress and black and white ankle boots, but she did not want to miss this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Nothing like the Auradonas existed on the Isle of the Lost. A group of people singing in harmony without instruments? Yeah, right. The only songs she'd ever heard when she was growing up were the dark nursery rhymes her father used to croon to her when she couldn't fall asleep. Her favorite was the one that went, Masters of the Shadowland, I call upon your knowing hand. I offer you this sinner's song, to guide the path I walk upon. She had never known what the nursery rhyme meant, but it had always helped her fall asleep. As Freddie darted across the tourney field, she could see the chapel in front of her. She was almost there. She just hoped they hadn't already chosen someone. Being in the Auradonas would definitely solve all of Freddie's problems. Not only would it allow her to sing every single day and get her one step closer to her goal of becoming a famous jazz singer, but it might help with her recent boredom, too. Ever since her best friend CJ, Captain Hook's daughter, had set out on her great pirate adventure a few weeks earlier, Freddie had been feeling a little lonely. She didn't really have anyone to hang out and get into mischief with. Of course, she wasn't exactly kissing frogs at the idea of hanging out with a bunch of stuffy AKs, but she supposed it was better than the alternative, sitting at the banquet hall by herself for every meal, which was basically what she did now. When she burst through the doors of the chapel a few minutes later, the 12 girls who made up the Auradonas were standing in a line on the stage, singing a catchy upbeat number. Freddie instantly recognized the song. It was called Rather Be With You. Since she'd learned that the Auradonas existed, Freddie had memorized every part of every one of their competition songs, just in case an opportunity popped up. Freddie had to admit the song kind of nauseated her, It was extremely bubbly.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?